So today's webinar has this wonderful panel of all these members and heads of these organizations who are going to be talking to you, who you will be hearing. In addition to that, we also have Dr. Satendra Singh, and I will tell you what his role was and is in this area that we are working in. So from the Thalassemia Society, we have Dr. J.S. Arora. He's the General Secretary, and they have some very interesting work that they have done when it comes to reviewing the assessment guidelines, and he will be talking to us about those experiences. We have Mr. Mukesh Garodia, who is the president of the Hemophilia Society, India, and he's in fact been very gracious, and even though there's a huge time difference, he's actually joined us from the US, where he is currently based, and probably is going to be there for a long time due to lockdown. And he himself is a hemophiliac, and he knows the problems. And again, that's also a disability which is invisible in most of the times. We will also be hearing Nikita Sara, who is head of advocacy and research at the Leprosy Mission India Trust. And of course, she has also some very interesting inputs, and they have also been having some interesting experiences when it comes to the disability assessment guidelines and what they have done. So you will be hearing something from them. And of course, we do have Dr. Satendra Singh, and why I think he has a very crucial role and why we really think it is so nice of him to be a part of this is way back in 2018, he had sent a joint letter with all the 5 disabilities that were excluded from the benchmark in the reservation of jobs to the Prime Minister's office. And that it did include hemophilia, thalassemia, sickle cell, Parkinson's, and multiple sclerosis. Unfortunately, Parkinson's Society, Maria was unable to join us because there's been a family emergency. There's also from our sickle cell, Mr. Ritesh was not able to join us, but I think everybody is going through really tough times. So, well, we have this wonderful group, and without further delay, I would be moderating this session. So my first question to Dr. J.S. Arora is, Dr. Arora, I know that you have been working very hard in terms of looking at the assessment guidelines, and there are some issues that you have faced. My question to you is, what are the gaps that you have been able to identify in the current assessment guidelines, and what and how difficult is it for people with thalassemia? Could you please share some of your...
Renuka, before that, can you stop sharing so that we can see Dr. Arora in full screen? Yes, thank you. And before Dr. Arora starts, there are some questions about people asking whether we can also, maybe use Hindi once in a while. There are some participants who can be reached out, but we have people from across the country. We may not be able to manage to speak in all the languages, but maybe once in a while you could use some Hindi because there are, I think, a lot of speakers from Delhi area. I would request that if anybody else is from any other organization who has joined us, please rename yourself in such a way that we can know from which organization you are. So it will help us to identify and probably recognize you here, if you can do that. You can just go to rename on your name and then rename yourself according to that organization that you're representing. Okay, Renuka, over to you.
Thank you, Shankar. Over to you, Dr. Arora. Would you like me to repeat the question, or you have?
It's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Thank you, Renuka. I think the people are right that we can use mixed language, be it English and Hindi, so they can understand easily. There is no harm in using the common language which we use while speaking in a general public. Okay. So first of all, my thanks to Renuka ji for organizing such a webinar, and a very important one, because see, even today, after so many 2016, almost 4 years are going on. We are still facing problem with the certification of the thalassemia and sickle cell. I'll speak both for thalassemia and sickle cell. As you know, that Disability Act was passed in December 2016, and the first notification for certification was issued on 15th June 17. So the moment it was passed, luckily it was very viable moment for us. First of all, I was involved with the amendment of this first Disability Act since 1996, and on the day 16 December 2016 when it was passed, we were having next day our 9th National Thalassemia Conference. So we were around 1,000 to 1,200 thalassemians were there. So we celebrated that event with our this National Thalassemia Conference. That's a moment of joy for all of us. But what happened that after that, people starting for asking for the certificate and all these things, there are no rules at all. So first notification came on the this 15th of June 2017, and still there was nothing clear in that. The only thing was that you asked the certificate, it should be issued within 30 days. It should be from the government sector. If it is private, then get it countersigned by government sector. That was all, nothing else. And first notification for scoring criteria for thalassemia and sickle cell and hemophilia was issued on 4th January 2018. It was so vague, I can say, even a layperson will say that it is totally, you can say, irrational. There is some rationality still was in sickle cell. There was 8 or 9 criteria, like it is a just diagnose a trait, then requiring blood transfusion, chelation, separate criteria, then hospitalization 3 to 4 times a year, there's functional impairment, loss of spleen or liver, kidney. So all these were there. And especially when we came to thalassemia, it was totally, you can say, irrational. Being, you can say, that a patient required blood transfusion once a month, twice a month, serum ferritin, the iron overload in thalassemia and sickle cell. If it is less than 1,000, more than 1,000, he has to visit the hospital, how frequently, and spleen, as you can say, the other point that osteoporosis, infection, very small points. So it was like this: if a patient who is not taking adequate treatment, then he will be scoring more. So if the person who is not adequately treated, if he gets scored more score of disability, I think he is not going to get anything benefit. He has not already studied in the even 7th, 8th class or so. He will drop out. It is required for a person at least who can manage it. So that was a totally, you can say, I'm again saying irrational, no rationality was there. Then we had a different, you can say, we have a frequent correspondence with the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Social Justice, officials over there, and we had a series of meetings. We sent our criteria, what we wanted. And finally, on 23rd of March 2018, we came to some consensus for both sickle cell and thalassemia. And it was just 3 points. If a patient or a person who is thalassemia trait or sickle trait, means who doesn't require any treatment, that their disability should be less than 40%, means not a benchmark disability. Then the second criteria was 40% to 79%, and the third was 80% above. The 80% was for those persons who have multi-disability, because in thalassemia, we have osteoporosis, cardiac problem, liver problem, all these things are there. If he has any other disability, that was to be considered as more than 80%. All others with the smaller to larger complications, be it you can say this better maybe the serum ferritin or even a liver problem, heart problem, whatever it is. It was considered 40 to 79%. Because why we were asking for one criteria for 40 to 79%. Reason being, I think Dr. Sitanda will tell you much better. Because see, if it is less than 40%, that's fine. The person is not eligible for any benefit under RPWD Act. It is, and that should not be there. We agree with that. If it is 40 to 80%, all the benefits are similar. Whether it is 40, 60, 70 or 80, there is no need of dividing into every 10% or so. If it is more than 80%, again, the only difference is they can have some financial, you can say, support in the form of for home care or assisted devices. So that was the only difference. So that's why we asked the ministry, let it be one category, 40 to 79%. So though that was agreed upon with the senior most officials in the Ministry of Health and Social Justice Department, Commissioner was himself over there, and other officials from the health were there. So it was all finalized. And even then, that corrigendum was issued on, you can say, 12th October 2018. And till today, almost more than 2.5 years have passed our last meeting. It has not been notified. So
Okay,
still we are getting the certificate since January 2000, the notification of January 2018, which is difficult to understand. Even today, I'm getting questions, or you can say calls from the different cities, doctors asking me that how to give certificate. So we do send them criteria, government criteria, but they are not able to understand. Then we ask them, okay, you give it anything between 50, 60, 70, doesn't matter, and they give at randomly. So that is the case till today. So though we have achieved in arriving at a consensus with the government, but still it has not been finalized. So that is our status.
जी, थैंक यू डॉक्टर अरोड़ा. यहाँ पे कुछ लोग कह रहे हैं कि हमें अंग्रेजी समझ में नहीं आती है. काफी आपने बोला, पर कोई बात नहीं.
मैं थोड़ा ब्रीफ कर देता हूँ हिंदी में, अगर आप कहेंगे तो.
नहीं, वो बाद में करेंगे. मैं थोड़ा सा सिनॉप्सिस सारे स्पीकर्स से एक बार ले लेते हैं. बेसिकली आप यही कह रहे हैं कि जो असेसमेंट गाइडलाइंस जारी हुआ था 2018 में, वो उसके बाद आपने देखा कि ये सूटेबल नहीं है, और उसके लिए आपने काफी काम किया है, डिस्कशन भी किया है मिनिस्ट्री लेवल पे, और 12 अक्टूबर को आपके पास एक वो कोरिजेंडम भी हुआ, लेकिन नोटिफिकेशन अभी तक उस पे अटका हुआ है. तो समस्या एक ही है कि जो हम लोगों को सबको समझ में आ रहा है, जो हमारा जो कॉमन अंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि असेसमेंट गाइडलाइंस नई डिसेबिलिटी के लिए काम नहीं कर रहा है. दूसरा, ये जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल्स भी हैं या हमारे जो भी हमारे पॉलिसी इम्प्लीमेंटर्स हैं, उनको थोड़ी सी और भी क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए. एंड मोर देन दैट, अगर आपकी तरफ से कुछ कंसेंसस बन चुका है तो ये आगे क्यों नहीं बढ़ी है? तो शायद ये प्रायोरिटी भी उनको बनाना पड़ेगा, और ये सब हम एकजुट होके ही अपनी डिमांड को, कलेक्टिव डिमांड को उनकी प्रायोरिटी बनाएं. तो ये हमने नोट किया है. और हमारे जो दोस्त हैं यहाँ जो हिंदी वगैरह इंग्लिश नहीं समझते हैं, हम कोशिश करेंगे हिंदी इंग्लिश में बोलने. और सवाल, आप अगर वक्त रहेगा तो सवाल जवाब के वक्त आप हिंदी में जरूर सवाल कीजिए, और जवाब आपको हिंदी में ही मिलेगा. थैंक यू डॉक्टर अरोड़ा. My next question is to
Renuka, we can just inform everybody that maybe some people have joined later on, that all question and answer sessions will be after all the panelists have presented.
Yeah, okay. So all question answers, please note it. You can even put it in this chat box feature here. And once all the panelists have finished speaking, for all those people who have joined just now, you will be able to get your questions through the chat box, and you can raise your hand if there is time towards the end. We've already received some questions from Facebook and YouTube where we are live, and also some people have already sent in their questions. We'll take those, and if there is time, we will also take your questions towards the end during the Q&A session. So my next speaker is Mr. Mukesh Garodia. Very nice to have you. He is, for all those people who have joined just now, he's the president of the Hemophilia Society in India, and he himself is a person with hemophilia. And my question to you again is, I knew somebody as a child whose son had hemophilia, and it's only later that I discovered that it was Air Marshal Chand who started the Hemophilia Society here in India. But I also heard of hemophilia when I was a child, and lot of us in this group, हमने एक पिक्चर देखा था जिसका नाम था जार निकोलस, who was the king of Russia. उनके जो सबसे छोटे लड़के थे उनको हीमोफीलिया था, और हमने जब ये फोटो मूवी देखा था हमें समझ में नहीं आया कि ये बच्चा गिर जाता था और सब डरते थे कि अगर इसका खून बहने लगा तो ये मर जाएगा. तो ये तो क्लैरिटी थी हमारे इतने लेवल पे. बट for you, Mukesh, my question is that how easy has it been for you and your members and your society to really get the disability certificate? And there are many invisible disabilities. I know many young people have hemophilia. So what do you think is primarily, how do you think without the disability certificate, are they going to be able to access health schemes or government schemes? And what are the problems really on the ground as compared to what is in policy and in writing? What's your perspective?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Renuka ji, for giving Hemophilia Federation India your platform to create an awareness on the problems which you are facing. I will try to make sure I'll speak in Hindi and English both. First of all, yes, MSSI is doing a wonderful job and we appreciate it, because a unified approach यदि होगा सरकार के पास में, it becomes the work easier. And I agree with my fellow panelist, Dr. J.S. Arora sir, जिन्होंने बहुत अच्छी तरह से बताया है on for 40% disability to 80% disability की कहाँ क्या जरूरत है. But going back, I'll just go in a flashback mode for a moment. मैं थोड़ा बताना चाहूँगा कि सबसे पहले बहुत सारी disabilities है जो Rights to People with Disability Act में नहीं था. So we are thankful that government was proactive to include hemophilia, sickle cell, thalassemia, and various other disorders in the redrafted bill, which was passed in 2016. But at the same time, there is no clarity. Hemophilia Federation India, we have always requested the Social Justice Ministry since 2012 till now that hemophilia should be a part of the benchmark disability. Because most of the disorders जो हमारे बीच में हैं, जो diseases हमारे बीच में हम जहाँ यहाँ बात कर रहे हैं, most of them are invisible disability, दिखाई नहीं देते हैं. आज हम सही तरह से चल रहे हैं, हो सकता है कि 15 दिन के लिए हम बेड पे हो जाए या हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट हो जाए ब्लड ट्रांसफ्यूजन लेने के लिए या various other problems. So quality of life hampers a lot. And at the same time, locomotive disability. हम quality of life जब खराब होगी तभी जाकर के हम completely bed ridden होते हैं और ortho problems होता है जो visible disability होता है. So our request has been with the government of India since last few years, after the bill became an act in 2016, that please give clarity, because when our hemophilics who go to the various, हम जब hemophilic हमारे बहुत सारे अपने राज्यों में, अपने states में जब disability certificate लेने जाते हैं, the question you Renuka ji about that is कि कुछ districts के जो authorities है उनको aware है, वो दे देते हैं disability certificate, और कहीं और तो होता ही नहीं. Means 90% of the hemophilics are not getting the right disability certificate. But yes, certain states we are getting it, certain districts we are getting it. It's a big challenge, because if you see the even in the RPWD Act, the specified disability schedule where it says that hemophilia is included into it, sickle cell is also a part of it. There is multiple sclerosis is also part of it. That is 4A and 4B. But clarity in this is not there. The clarity in the act is not there. And at the same time, I believe government should also introduce one more thing, which is to educate the government officials to the taluk level, जहाँ पे उनको भी बताया जाए कि इस बीमारी के इस तकलीफों से जो ग्रस्त है उनको सर्टिफिकेट्स दिया जाए इस स्टेजेस में, चाहे वो हेमोफिलिया हो या सिकल सेल हो, थैलेसीमिया हो या आपके मल्टीपल स्क्लेरोसिस हो. So clarity is not there and we are fighting it. It's a big challenge. So we requested the Disability Commissioner of Government of India कि please give us a clarity, because there is no job reservation for us. As I would, if I say about hemophilia, there is nothing like that. So there is a huge lacuna in, though the government is proactive, the government is thinking in the right direction, but I believe clarity should be there because we are right now in pendulum, we are hanging it. हमें पता ही नहीं है कि हमें क्या करना है. हाँ, we have a reservation in railways जो हमें पहले नहीं था. अभी हमें रेलवे पहले था कि ट्रीटमेंट सेंटर टू द होम, अभी जाके क्लैरिटी आया है कि वी कैन टेक रिजर्वेशन इन रेलवे बुकिंग्स. But apart from that, there is no clarity in the act at all. Renuka ji.
Thank you, मुकेश जी. So, जो आपने कहा बिल्कुल सही, बहुत अच्छे तरह से आपने कहा कि एक तो क्लैरिटी नहीं है और दूसरा जो है सिर्फ इस पे खत्म नहीं होती है बात आगे इसको किस तरह से बढ़ाएंगे, अवेयरनेस करना पड़ेगा, ट्रेनिंग करना पड़ेगा. और अगर मैंने जो आपने कहा कि 90% लोग आपके उनको डिसेबिलिटी सर्टिफिकेट नहीं मिल रहा है, तो ये तो बहुत ही गंभीर समस्या है जिसको आई जस्ट डोंट नो इसको आप लोग किस तरह से मैनेज कर रहे हैं. और हम लोग सब साथ हैं और हम लोग एक साथ इसको आगे बढ़ाएंगे और इसको we will change it. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद मुकेश जी.
If you allow me to add one more thing there, if may I please?
जी.
Yeah, thank you. So see, hemophilia, we are factor 8 and 9 disorders. And as you said that, you know, a Tsar movie you're talking about, yeah, we are known as a royal disease, but there is nothing royal about it in India or globally. So we requested the government of India initially that any hemophilic who is less than 5% of the deficiency of factor level in their blood should be given a big portion in the big space in the Rights to People with Disability Act. At the same time, we should have also reservation for employment, which is not there at all. I do respect the 11 benchmark disabilities where they are there, but I would advocate, and we have been advocating it, that hemophilia and thalassemia and various others, multiple sclerosis, sickle cell, should be a part of the benchmark disabilities, because we people are as disabled as all the others. That's a very important, we are emphasizing on. We are regularly in touch with various the Social Justice Ministry, especially the Disability Commissioner's Office, and we've been organizing events where invited Satinder Singh sir, along with the Joint Commissioner of India, Mr. Sanjay Prasad ji, and we have been requesting them. So the information which we have been receiving is that we have organized a review committee, and the review committee will address it. But it is since 2 years I am hearing the same answer कि review committee हो रही है, review committee देख रही है आपकी problems को और हम देखेंगे. But I think we have to be a little proactive, and maybe I should use the word aggressive in this behalf, because otherwise it will be too late for us.
Very well said. बिल्कुल सही कहा. ये 40% बेंचमार्क, 40%. अगर आपको गवर्नमेंट के किसी स्कीम में बेनिफिट चाहिए होगा, जैसे हमारे कुछ मेंबर्स ने कहा, एडिप स्कीम भी तो मांगता है 40%. तो अगर मुझे वॉकिंग एड चाहिए या व्हीलचेयर चाहिए तो मेरे को तो एटलीस्ट 40% मिलना चाहिए. फॉरगेट द असेसमेंट ऑफ below 40%. There are so many of us who cannot afford. तो हमारे को तो सिर्फ सरकार से ही हमको benefits मिलना चाहिए ना. So this is good. I have noted this point. This is also one of our very burning issues, that even multiple sclerosis needs to have, be considered as a benchmark disability, so that we can get a larger spectrum of, it just widens the spectrum a little bit. But thank you very much.
Renuka, before you go ahead, just a small little thing. Some of you may not be familiar with Zoom. There is something called speaker view and gallery view. If you would like to see the speakers clearly, please switch to the gallery speaker view so that you can see the speaker who is speaking. So, for example, right now, you can see Renuka ji on the screen now, and you can see the speaker clearly. The second thing is that we'd like to acknowledge the presence of Vishnu Goel from the Hemophiliac Society and Dr. Anubha Mahajan from the Chronic Pain India. Thank you all for joining in.
Very nice, very nice. Welcome indeed. Thank you, Shankar. This is very important because I sometimes don't even know where to look. But yeah, the speaker view and the gallery view is very useful. So, Abhi, my next question is to Nikita ji. मेरे को आपसे ये पूछना था कि लेप्रेसी क्योर्ड एंड लेप्रेसी की जो असेसमेंट है, आपने बहुत रिसर्च किया हुआ है, आप हेड करती हैं हमारी या आपके एडवोकेसी एंड रिसर्च के विंग को. मुझे जो जितना एक दो बार हम मिले भी हैं, मैंने आपके मेल्स भी देखे हैं, आपने कुछ असेसमेंट गाइडलाइंस को के बारे में रिव्यू के बारे में गवर्नमेंट को कुछ चिट्ठियां लिखी हैं. और इसमें हालांकि लेप्रेसी बहुत पहले ये जो हमारे जो न्यू डिसेबिलिटीज की बात कर रहे हैं, जो 5 हैं, उसके पहले आप लोगों ने काफी काम किया हुआ है. तो to actually put it in the right way, you have kind of been quite in the forefront, and please share with us what is your experience. आपको क्या लगता है कि ये जो assessment guidelines है, इसमें leprosy cured के लिए या आपकी संस्था के लिए या आपके लोगों के लिए कुछ फायदा मिल रहा है with the current assessment guidelines, या आपको भी इसी तरह के problems and challenges face करने हैं? What has been your experience? Could you tell us a little bit more?
Thanks a lot, Renuka ji and Javed ji, for this opportunity. And before I go on further, I'd like to say that I don't head research, but I do head advocacy and communication. Research in the leprosy mission is a very, very huge domain headed by someone else. So thanks a lot. And yes, before I move, there's a fantastic audience over here. So I'd like to say many people may not be aware about leprosy. So I'll just take 30 seconds about it. That leprosy is one of the oldest diseases known to mankind, and it's been there for a very long time. People think there are lots of myths and misconceptions surrounding leprosy, but the fact is that leprosy is completely curable. It can be cured within 6 to 12 months, and there are no issues. But if it's not treated on time and it's not diagnosed in time, it can have lifelong disabilities. And even globally, it's recognized that leprosy is one of the leading causes of disabilities globally. And there are quite a few disabilities that happen because of leprosy. So yes, and one of the major things that we've been advocating for a very, very long time is the assessment criteria, because we feel that the formulation of the assessment criteria is very wrong. And other than, of course, discriminatory laws, this has been a major focus area that we're looking at. So the manner of assessment for leprosy cured persons under the RPD Act of 2016 and the guidelines for the assessment have been formulated in such a manner that the crucial aspect of loss of sensation has not been received the due weightage it should have gone. So what happens is that once you develop a disability, you may also develop a lot of invisible disabilities, that is loss of sensation. So you may have, your muscle may not be working in your eye and you may not be able to blink, or you may have a perfectly looking hand, but you may not have sensation in your hand. So that is not looked under the assessment criteria. It's also pertinent to take note and give more weightage on the impact of loss of sensation in an individual, the practical consequences it carries in terms of functionality and other disabilities. One thing that I really feel that I must say is that loss of sensation is a particular condition that is associated with the disease of leprosy and is completely irreversible for life, even after there is cure. And it is this loss of sensation that is very, very disabling and leaves a person with limited option for rehabilitation and for employment as well. Also, if a person has a loss of sensation, he is more prone to accidents. So for example, if you are cooking and you don't, because of the loss of sensation, you cannot feel that you have burnt yourself or you are making chapati. So that will cause a lot of injuries. And this can further lead to disability. And because of this, many cases, it's led to amputation of your limbs. And this particular formulation is very important to be covered under the assessment criteria for preventing disability. Also, like many will be knowing that leprosy is a disease of skin and nerves. When leprosy is detected and treated, even today, every 4 minutes we have somebody who is diagnosed with leprosy in India. And India accounts for about 60% of the global burden. Now, many of the people think that leprosy has been eliminated, which is not the case, but we still have a huge number. People are not aware about the reality, and they're facing a lot of issues. So yes, we had taken forward this assessment criteria, and we had suggested a new formulation of the assessment criteria to the ministry. And we continue working for it because we feel that this is something that is really important and need to be taken further. Because the damage to the motor nerves that supply the muscles that supplies to the muscles in the foot, for example, that supplies in the foot can lead to a drop foot or collapsed arches. And if you continue walking on that kind or repeatedly walking, it could cause a lot of injury. But the current assessment formula is not looking into it. So we've been advocating for a very long time, and we're very happy that there are many other organizations who've come forward. And I think the way forward is that all of us get together and get a lot of evidences, because evidences are something really important of people who are facing these issues. Among people affected by leprosy, a lot of people affected by leprosy are willing to come forward and then take it further. So that's it. I think I've done my 5 minutes. So thank you. Thanks, Renuka.
Thank you, Nikita. So this is very insightful. अब जैसे कुछ आप एक और पहलू पे थोड़ा सा अगर आप बताएं, ये जिनको लेप्रेसी क्योर हो गया है और जिनको वो जॉब्स में हैं, उनके साथ कुछ is there any stigma, still some stigma? How are they? Have you had any experience on? Because ये leprosy has been always a very big stigma, and इतना कुछ करने के बाद और assessment guidelines में ये सब consideration and loss of sensory sensation, ये सब अगर नहीं होता है तो ये लोग employment वगैरह या ये कैसे manage कर रहे हैं ये?
So there are two things about it. When there's awareness also and there's lack of awareness, but the stigma is huge. I'll give an example of a girl working with a very large organization, a multinational in Delhi, and she has complete loss of sensation in her hand. But in our organization, she's gone and told them that she has leprosy and that's a loss of sensation, but she doesn't have a disability certificate. And because of that, she's never taken seriously, or the kind of assignments that she gets, and in her daily activities also, she often hurts her hand and goes to the hospital for treatment. But people don't take her seriously. And because of not having a disability certificate, she is not able to apply for many other jobs that she could, or perhaps explain to her employer. But in other cases also, there are cases where there's a huge level of stigma. Even if you have a
Nikita ji, we are not able to hear you.
disability.
You can just switch off your video and try.
I think she's frozen. Yeah.
I have some, can you hear me?
Just switch off your video. Yeah, now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So even recently, I was visiting one of our hospitals where a very young person who had come for a reconstructive surgery, but he decided not to go back to his house ever, because he said there's so much stigma in the community that he lives in, that if he ever goes back, his family is going to be ostracized and thrown away from the community. So yes, people are not just dealing with disability, they're dealing with very, very negative mindsets and imagery that comes across along with leprosy. And they're also facing a lot of stigma and discrimination at workplaces, at community areas and families as such.
Okay, Ji. Thank you. Thank you. This looks like all of us who have any kind of invisible disability, there are various levels of challenges. एक तो disability certificate नहीं मिलता है, तो इसलिए हम बता नहीं सकते, हमारे employees समझ नहीं पाते हैं, हमारे multiple sclerosis and बाकी सारे जो disabilities हैं यहाँ पे जिनके speakers हमारे बीच में हैं, सबका यही issue है. तो I think हमारी जो collective voice है वही हम लोगों को थोड़ा सा सहूलियत पहुंचाएगी हमारी समस्या को, पर ये इसीलिए हम लोग ये कर रहे हैं. और ये कलेक्टिव अप्रोच जो है हमारा, ये my next question is to Dr. Satyendra. Dr. Satyendra, you have...
Before that, also like to quickly acknowledge the presence of Santosh Kumar Jaiswal, who's the secretary of the Ranchi Hemophilia Society.
Welcome, very nice.
We also have a lot of messages related to, everybody sharing their experiences with various disabilities and things like that. So we acknowledge all these messages. The idea of this webinar is for us to collectively work together, not as independent disabilities, but together to reassess the need for the validation of the new disabilities and make sure that they are given the proper importance by the government officials.
Correct. Dr. Satyendra, I am personally very inspired by the way you have made certain inroads into, challenging the policies, making changes. तो मैं जो आपसे पूछना चाहती थी कि collective approach का जो इम्पोर्टेंस है या कलेक्टिव अप्रोच से जो हम अचीव कर सकते हैं, वो कितना महत्व रखता है ऐसे पॉलिसी रिफॉर्म में? क्योंकि जो मेरा मानना है उसमें मुझे लगता है कि एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए या एक क्लॉज को चेंज करने के लिए या एक डिसेबिलिटी के लिए असेसमेंट पूरा चेंज करना, क्या ये संभव है? क्या हम अकेले जाके ये कुछ कर सकते हैं? आपने एक जॉइंट लेटर भेजा था प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडिया को एग्जैक्टली अबाउट व्हाट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट बेंचमार्क. एक तो आप उसके ऊपर थोड़ा सा अगर रोशनी डालें कि ये बेंचमार्क डिसेबिलिटी के ऊपर आपने कौन सा पिटीशन या कौन सा लेटर भेजा था, उसमें कोई रिस्पॉन्स मिला नहीं, 2 साल हो गया. एक तो इस पे पहलू पे अगर आप कुछ बोलें, और दूसरी बात कि ये कलेक्टिव अप्रोच को क्या लगता है आपको, क्या हमें कोई सक्सेस मिलने की संभावना है? अगर है तो आगे हमको इस वाले वेबिनार के बाद क्या करना पड़ेगा? डॉक्टर सत्येंद्र जी.
थैंक यू सो मच रेणुका जी. एंड फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल मैं शुक्रगुजार हूँ मल्टीपल स्क्लेरोसिस सोसाइटी ऑफ इंडिया का कि आप लोगों ने मुझे अपने प्लेटफॉर्म पर आने का दोबारा से मौका दिया. आपने एक बहुत ही अच्छा क्वेश्चन पूछा है, कलेक्टिव अप्रोच और कलेक्टिव रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. तो अगर हम बात करें 2016 की, 2016 में डिसेबिलिटी सेक्टर काफ़ी खुश था क्योंकि हमें लगा था कि UNCRPD की तर्ज पर एक हमारा नया विकलांगता कानून या डिसेबिलिटी एक्ट बना है जो कि हमें हमारे सारे राइट्स देगा. और काफ़ी खुशी की लहर थी लोगों में काफ़ी उत्साह था कि फाइनली वी हैव गॉट ए राइट्स बेस्ड अप्रोच डिसेबिलिटी एक्ट. But unfortunately, very quickly, we came to the realization that even our own law, which is supposed to be based on non-discrimination, is discriminating 6 disabilities. So we have now 21 specified disabilities. लेकिन अगर आप देखें तो 6 disabilities ऐसी हैं जिनको 5% हायर एजुकेशन में तो रिजर्वेशन मिलेगा, लेकिन जब हम बात करते हैं जॉब रिजर्वेशन की, एम्प्लॉयमेंट की, 4% जो कि है, तो इसमें 6 डिसेबिलिटीज़ का कहीं पर भी नाम नहीं। और ये 6 डिसेबिलिटीज़ जो हैं वो ये हैं, 2 तो क्रॉनिक न्यूरोलॉजिकल कंडीशंस में, विच इंक्लूड मल्टीपल स्क्लेरोसिस एंड पार्किंसंस डिजीज. Then we have 3 on hematological disorders, thalassemia, sickle cell disease, and hemophilia. And there was one more, in fact, now that is also very important, why we need to talk about in a collective approach. The 6th one is speech and language disability. Now, speech and language disability has been a part of Disability Act since 1995. But even since 1995, nobody ever thought about it, that they have been neglected, that none of these are getting 4% job reservations, or earlier it was 3% job reservations, which is very strange. And there was a reason why in 2018, I remember a UPSC aspirant who inka mere paas phone aaya, he was applying for UPSC form and he had sickle cell disease, but there was no reservation for sickle cell disease. And there was the moment when I contacted the organizations which were Multiple Sclerosis Society of India, the Sickle Cell Welfare Society, the Parkinson's Disease and Movement Disorder Society in Mumbai, National Thalassemia Welfare Society, and Hemophilia Federation of India. And we together, the 4 of us along with me, we wrote a letter to the Honorable Prime Minister of India that the whole premise of our RPD Act is based on non-discrimination. But how can you choose and pick disabilities when you are granting them employment? ये तो बिल्कुल ही आपके कानून का ही, अगर आप देखें तो this is a sort of a state-sponsored discrimination which is happening within the law. So we wrote that letter on 30th July 2018, and it's been nearly more than 2 years, and there has been no response to us. So I think one of the way forward is that as we are having this webinar and all of the rights stakeholders are on this platform, we again need to reactivate this strategy that we, of course, it has to be all or none law. As I'm a physiologist, we teach in physiology, all or none law principle. Either you give benefits to all or to none. And that is the same logic being employed in 5% higher reservation. So how can you choose and pick disabilities when it comes to employment? जब आपके job की बात आती है तो अगर हम बात करें, I must congratulate the Multiple Sclerosis Society of India that you are actually taking a very neglected area forward, which is to reassess the assessment guidelines. Because अगर हम बात करें अपनी multiple chronic neurological conditions की, so there is no clarity in the assessment guidelines. There are only 2 chronic neurological conditions, multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's disease. However, there are others like very common disorders like traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, which is pretty common. It has been given nowhere attention in the entire Disability Act. And when the guidelines were framed, only 1% from the HOD neurology of one particular hospital was invited. And it is very strange because her specific domain area was epilepsy. And when these guidelines were gazette notified in January 2018, it is very surprising that they excluded the criteria on epilepsy. एपिलेप्सी के जो मापदंड हैं जो कि पुरानी असेसमेंट गाइडलाइंस में थे वो हटा दिए गए हैं इन द न्यू असेसमेंट गाइडलाइंस, व्हिच इज वेरी स्ट्रेंज. दूसरा जो एक बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट मुद्दा है वो ये है कि जो डिसेबिलिटी एक्ट में कहता है कि इट हैज टू बी अ परमानेंट डिसेबिलिटी. बट द इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग विद न्यूरोलॉजिकल कंडीशंस इज दैट व्हाट इज द डेफिनेशन ऑफ chronicity. We say chronic neurological condition. So what is a chronic condition? कितने टाइम पर आप बोलोगे कि ये जो डिसऑर्डर है ये क्रॉनिक है? 1 हफ्ता, 2 हफ्ता, 2 महीने, 3 महीने, 6 महीने, 1 साल, 1.5 साल? Nobody knows what is the exact criteria. It is not given in the guidelines. किसी को नहीं पता है क्या गाइडलाइंस है. और कुछ कंडीशन जो कि स्पेसिफाइड डिसेबिलिटी, अगर आप एग्जांपल है मल्टीपल स्क्लेरोसिस का, तो इट इज ए रिलैप्सिंग रिमिटिंग. अब इस कंडीशंस को या पार्किंसंस में आपके अगर सिम्टम्स नहीं आ रहे हैं तो आप कैसे कहोगे कि क्रॉनिसिटी में आ रहा है या नहीं आ रहा? So it becomes very difficult for the doctors to actually assess. And it is the domain of the doctors, and they are not talking about this, they are not debating about it. Then again, multiple sclerosis, as you've highlighted, it is an invisible disability, pretty common. There are issues regarding depression also, and it has both component. It has motor component and it has mental component of psychosomatic component also. जो scale दिया गया है assessment guidelines में वो है IDEA scale, and it can measure the both components. So there is a chance that you can count the disability twice, and thereby you can get a wrong calculations. Third, some of you have also mentioned in the chat box में आपने लिखा है कि ये जो पूरा का पूरा फोकस है पूरे असेसमेंट गाइडलाइंस पर, ये पूरा का पूरा फोकस है disability assessment ka. It is not on ability assessment. There is no mention of functional base scales. And this was our norm, this was our main demand from the disability sector also. And I'll give you one quick example is that a medical doctor who has done MBBS, he has polio, he is using crutches. वैसाखी का उपयोग करते हैं, डॉक्टर क्वालिफाइड हैं. पीजी का उन्होंने एग्जाम दिया, उनका सिलेक्शन हो गया. जब वो जाते हैं असेसमेंट बोर्ड के पास, तो वो बोलते हैं कि आप अपनी वैसाखी रखिए और चलकर दिखाइए, बिकॉज ये उनके क्राइटेरिया हैं गाइडलाइंस में. Now, this is what you are doing. You are measuring his disability. You are not measuring his ability with the help of assistive devices, जो कि उनकी वैसाखी या उनकी crutches हैं. So we are not using functional skills. And based on that, lots of medical students were debarred from entering into medical profession or post-graduations. So we encouraged him to file a case in the Delhi High Court. And based on that, MCI changed their criteria that even if people with disability, locomotor disability, they are having more than 80% of disability, then they can be eligible provided there will be a functional assessment. So we are asking the same thing in the assessment guidelines also. Why can't we do the same thing? Why again and again हमें बार बार कोर्ट के चक्कर कोर्ट में या कचहरी में जाना पड़ता है? तो वही बात आती है collective approach की. So that is why I think credit to Multiple Sclerosis Society of India that there is an organization which are actually talking about the root cause of all this discrimination, that we need to reassess these guidelines because that is the root main crisis area. Second, except India, भारत के अलावा कोई भी ऐसा देश नहीं है जो कि मैजिकल कोट एंड कोट 40% विकलांगता का उपयोग करता है. No country developed world, nobody uses the criteria that you need to have a benchmark disability of 40%. How can you assess something in something say in conditions like mental illness, autism, learning disabilities? You cannot arrive at this magical number. This is certainly not possible. So who has devised this magical number? Nobody knows. And we are stuck in that. Many of the people have mentioned in the chat box also, and Dr. Rhoda also said about that is that. So this whole idea of, this magical benchmark disability of 40% is flawed. Then the important thing is that there are 109 participants over here who have turned up to this particular webinar. But the problem is that we all are already converted people in the sense that we are passionate about these disabilities or multiple sclerosis. But what about the conversation happening in the mainstream media? These conversations should be the part of medical societies, because these are the neurologists who are facing these problems, but they're not talking about it. They're not writing medical papers on this, right? So I think my suggestion would be, as a way forward in a collective approach, is that the neurologists which are there on the scientific panel of MSSI, they need to sit together along with, there are few doctors with multiple sclerosis who are part of a Doctors with Disabilities group. They need to sit together and they need to write down about these issues in the medical journals like Neurology India and the Annals of National Indian Academy of Neurology. Only then it will start this conversation within the medical community. Right now, they are least interested, they are least bothered that what is happening. Then one more thing is that when these guidelines were framed, all the directors of the 9 national institutes were involved. So I think they cannot shy away from their responsibility. We again, as a strategy, need to contact the directors individually, all of these 9 national institutes, because some of them are actually working in the rehab for, like Swami Vivekanand Nirtar, which is a National Institute on Rehabilitation Training and Research. Their director is actually a medical doctor. He's a PMR specialist. He will understand the issues. So we need to, tap into these particular areas, and it has to be a cross-disability movement, because we must give attention to the fact that we leave no one behind. And that is why all of the disabilities together, which are right now being neglected in the Disabilities Act, they need to raise their voice that there has to be an ability assessment and not a disability assessment. And finally, I'll end on a positive note that since the passage of Disabilities Act, we have seen a case where there is a thalassemia, a girl who has got admission into MBBS. And there has been a medical student who belongs to a leprosy area, and his family members belong to people affected by leprosy. There has been one example of, again, in my medical college, there has been an example of a hemophilia candidate who got admission, but again, after the intervention of the court. And I remember in our last chat during the Multiple Sclerosis Day, I shared the example of one of a doctor who has done MD physiology, and she was rejected the post of senior resident in VMMC and Safdarjung Hospital. She was denied because of multiple sclerosis. I can proudly say that right now she has got her job in my department, in my institution, University College of Medical Sciences. There was no disability assessment per se. She hasn't undergone harassment like she faced in the Safdarjung Hospital, and she was selected on her own merit. So these are the way forward. We need to be perseverant, and we need to include the cross disabilities while we are talking about all of these changing the assessment guidelines. I think that should be the collective way forward.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सत्येंद्र जी. You have said it all so well, and what I have gone away, and I think जो हमारे पूरे जो जितने भी viewers सुन रहे हैं, ये जो हमारी क्षमता को assess किया जाए और हमारी विकलांगता को assess ना किया जाए. Let us not assess our disability, because look at my ability, and my disability might not always be visible, but with a little bit of adjustment, I can perform as a productive employee or productive individual and add to the GDP, if you may say so. And you know, that is important. और आपने जो ये कहा कि you know all this एक न्यूरोलॉजी, द साइंटिफिक एंड एडवाइजरी कमिटी मस्ट, इसका एक बहुत अच्छा खबर मैं देना चाहती हूँ जो हमारे सारे व्यूअर्स भी हैं, हमारे MSSI के लोगों को सबको पता है कि हमारे 3 न्यूरोलॉजिस्ट कुछ दिन पहले आए थे वेबिनार में. दे आर वर्किंग ऑन क्रिएटिंग एन असेसमेंट गाइडलाइंस व्हिच विल गो हैंड इन हैंड एंड व्हिच विल clearly demonstrate what are the gaps and what needs to be done. But what I like about your message is that ये भी ठीक है, लेकिन उनको ये Annals of Neurology में publish करना चाहिए ये paper, so that there is some authenticity and there is some evidence base to the recommendations that they are giving. Because at the end of the day, we are giving evidence. हमारे जो real MS persons हैं, वो evidence है. They have the lived experience of being denied the assessment disability certificate. But for a government to see evidence in terms of published paper by a group of neurologists, that is very important. That's a very interesting point that you made, and I think this we will note this. The second aspect is जो collective approach की बात कर रहे हैं आप, coming together. I think at the end of the day, we need to make sure that हमारी जो demand है, cross disabilities की जो demand है, we should categorize it to say 40% benchmark, invisible disability. ये सब मुद्दे लेके हमको एक separate discussion करना पड़ेगा. That I think is become evident through your through what you captured. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका. ये सब कह रहे हैं, हमारे सारे speakers कह रहे हैं कि जो मापदंड है, it's vague, it's irrational, it doesn't cover what we need to be covered, what needs to be covered when it comes to assessment. So thank you very much. I would like to thank all the panelists for bringing this huge perspective, widening our understanding about the new disabilities. And I know that Mukesh ji, you have to leave because there is a very important meeting that you have to take. We have got a few questions. Some of them are coming in the chat window. I would again like to thank every one of you who have joined. I see huge representation from the Hemophilia Society. Thank you very much for being a part of us. And like Satyendra ji says, we are passionate about it. Now our message needs to go out to the government because they need to be converted. They need to be equally passionate about our cause, and together we will make that happen. And before you know, we call it a wrap, I have a few questions which has already been sent to me through the other channels.
Renuka, before that, just a few acknowledgements. I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Sonal, who's an occupational therapist for the Hemophilia Society. Professor Anita Salve, Subhashini, and Dhanmani, all of them from the Hemophilia Society. Thank you for joining in. Over to you, Renuka.
Thank you. Also, thank you to Nonita Gangwani, Dr. Nonita Gangwani. you have always been attending our webinars. It's a pleasure to have you participating. You will be a role model for people with MS, with disabilities, who are great professionals, and how well you are managing. This is our personal salute to you for doing what you're doing and making a difference and believing that people with multiple sclerosis can live a normal life, can be very successful, and all our good wishes are to you. I have not been able to speak with you very often, but from all of us at MSSI, thank you very much for participating. You are an inspiration to us. So I will take in a few questions, and the first question is to Mukesh ji. Mukesh ji, one of the things that multiple sclerosis is asking in the assessment, while reviewing the assessment guidelines, is there should be a presence of a neurologist, because only a neurologist can understand the problems. While a neurologist's presence is going to add to be able to understand a multiple sclerosis person's invisible symptoms and remitting relapsing, आपकी हीमोफीलिया फेडरेशन में ऐसा कोई डिमांड है, ऐसा कोई डॉक्टर है जो स्पेशलिस्ट है जिसको इस बात के बारे में समझ में आएगा, एंड क्या ये जरूरी है कि आपके कोई स्पेशलिस्ट डॉक्टर्स भी पैनल में होने चाहिए? ये एक सवाल है.
So we at Hemophilia Federation India, we have a medical advisory board consisting of 8 hematologists from across India. At the same time, we have a post specially for Vice President Medical. Presently is Dr. Sashikant Apte, who is from Pune Sehadri Hospital. And when we were discussing with the Ministry, Social Justice Ministry, especially the Disability Commissioners, Kamlesh Pandey and Sanjay Prasad ji, our request was that to analyze, assess a hemophilic, there should be a hematologist assigned by the government who can understand that yes, this person, though he's looks like he's strong enough, he's fit, but he is not. His joints are really bad. He has a lot of issues. He has to spend at least 10 days minimum in the hospital most of the times to take medicine, because the treatment in India is different. It's an on-demand. Person of hemophilic have to travel. So we do have requested it. We do have a wonderful panel, but it's up to the government to accept it. But we are trying our best to make sure that there should be a hematologist who is specially assigned to address the needs and requirement when delivering a certificate to the hemophiliacs.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So a hematologist, okay, it's a bit of a mouthful, but yes, this is something which I have also, this is so very, very important, I think. Yeah. Thank you.
And to add to that, sorry to interrupt you there, to add to that, there is a lack of hematologists in India also. In many of the hospitals, across the government hospitals I'm talking about, many places, hematology has been a part of medicine ward. So there is again a challenge that hematologists are not there. So to assess the situation, you need a professional who knows how to address hemophilia and various other bleeding disorders.
Very well said, because in a population of 1.3 billion, there are only 1,300 neurologists in our country. And a neurologist is looking at stroke, dementia, Parkinson's, epilepsy. So really, that's also one of our problems. And someday we will probably have specialization in MS. We'll have MS nurses. We'll probably have specialized physiotherapists. You know, I know that you're taking physiotherapy, and there's somebody in the chat who said I'm a physiotherapist for hemophiliacs. So this is very important. It's a great perspective, and it's also, I'm seeing there's a lot of commonality. Thank you, Mukesh ji. My next question is to Dr. Arora. Is he still on?
Yes, he's there.
Okay. Dr. Arora, एक सवाल आया था कि आपने कहा कि आप लोगों को ब्लड ट्रांसफ्यूजन वगैरह करना जरूरी होता है आपके थैलेसीमिया मेंबर्स को, तो ये कोविड के टाइम में आप लोग कैसे मैनेज कर रहे हैं? क्योंकि हमारे बीच कुछ एक मल्टीपल स्क्लेरोसिस के पर्सन्स हैं जिनको कोविड हुआ है और वो रिकवर किए हैं, लेकिन इट हैज बीन अ नाइटमेयर. तो कुछ आप हमारे साथ शेयर कर सकते हैं कि आपके मेंबर्स ट्रीटमेंट कोविड के दौरान कैसे ले रहे हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं?
हमारे ऊपर अगर देखा जाए तो थैलेसीमिया में तो बहुत बुरी मार पड़ी है. There are two things. First of all, the blood transfusion means blood donation. जो हमारे ब्लड डोनेशन कैंप लगते थे, यूजुअली देवर इन कॉलेजेस या कॉर्पोरेट ऑफिस में जहाँ के ज्यादा लोग काम करते हैं, तो वो जो ब्लड डोनेशन कैंप लगने तो बिल्कुल बंद हो गए. तो हमारा जो मेजर चंक ब्लड डोनेशन आता था वो एकदम बंद हो गया. दैट वाज द फर्स्ट पार्ट. सेकेंडली, जो वॉलंटियर ब्लड डोनर्स थे जो ब्लड डोनेट करना चाहते थे, दे आर नॉट रेडी टू गो टू हॉस्पिटल फॉर गोइंग टू फॉर ब्लड डोनेशन. रीजन बीइंग, उनको ये डर है कि अगर हम कोविड हॉस्पिटल में या किसी भी हॉस्पिटल में अगर हम ब्लड डोनेट कर जाएंगे तो हमें को कोविड ना हो जाए, तो वो ब्लड डोनेट नहीं करना चाहते. और खास तौर से ये प्रॉब्लम हमें अप्रैल मई में तो बहुत ज्यादा आई, क्योंकि उस समय बिल्कुल भी कैंप भी जीरो हो गए थे और कुछ हमारे हॉस्पिटल जो है पूरे कोविड हो गए थे. वो अभी भी है. अब थोड़ा सा गवर्नमेंट ने रिलैक्सेशन दिया है कि आप आउटडोर कैंप लगा सकते हैं, लेकिन आउटडोर कैंप जो है वो छोटे छोटे लग रहे हैं. RWO में या मार्केट में वो भी मुश्किल से 20, 25, 30, 50 यूनिट से ज्यादा नहीं आ पाते. जबकि हमारे पहले जो कैंप लगते थे एक बार में 200, 250, 300 यूनिट आ जाते थे. तो हमें ब्लड की तो बहुत ज्यादा शॉर्टेज है. तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वी आर फेसिंग द शॉर्टेज ऑफ ब्लड, दैट इज नंबर 1. सेकेंडली, जो हमारे ट्रांसफ्यूजन सेंटर्स थे, जो डे केयर सेंटर थे, जैसे सबसे बड़ा सेंटर था लोकनायक हॉस्पिटल और दिल्ली के अंदर GTB हॉस्पिटल, ये सारे दोनों बड़े बड़े हॉस्पिटल जहाँ 250, 300 पेशेंट थे वो पूरे कोविड हो गए. अब उनको बोला गया आप कहीं भी चले जाओ. उसके लिए हमें बहुत फाइट हुई है. शायद आप, अगर आप मैं आपको बताना चाहूँ, तो जब मैंने उसके लिए फाइट किया अपना न्यूज़पेपर में, आप टीवी पे और फेसबुक पे, मुझे गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल से एक मतलब थ्रेट लेटर आ गया कि ये आप क्या कर रहे हो, आप गवर्नमेंट के अगेंस्ट बोल रहे हो. आप जैसे आपने परसों ही सुना पार्लियामेंट के अंदर कि आपने अभी क्या नाम है, प्रशांत भूषण के ऊपर भड़काऊ भाषण दे रहे हो. तो मेरे ऊपर ये एलिगेशन लग गया कि आप पब्लिक को भड़का रहे हो, आपके ऊपर एक्शन क्यों ना लिया जाए. तो ये हमारे ऊपर एक एलिगेशन आना शुरू हो गया. जबकि हम तो ये कह रहे थे कि हमारे जो बच्चे हैं उनको ट्रांसफ्यूजन के लिए कोई जगह आइडेंटिफाई की जाए. हमने ये तो नहीं कहा कि तुम ऐसे स्ट्राइक करो, हमने तो कहा हमें जगह आइडेंटिफाई किया. तो हमारा फर्स्ट प्रॉब्लम था जब ब्लड डोनेशन कैंप बंद हो गए. सेकेंड प्रॉब्लम आया कि लोग ब्लड डोनेट नहीं करना चाहते, कोविड हॉस्पिटल में उनको डर है कि हमें ना हो जाए. तीसरा, बहुत से लोगों को या फैमिली में कोविड हो गया तो वो फैमिली वाले ब्लड डोनेट नहीं करना चाहते, इम्यूनिटी वीक हो जाएगी हमारी, तो इसलिए ब्लड डोनेट करना चाहते हैं. फोर्थ इज डे केयर सेंटर. वहां पर जो है अपना क्या कहते हैं, मेन जो सेंटर है उससे हटा के कहीं और भेज दिया गया, तो पेशेंट को दिक्कत होती है. फिर पहले क्या होता था कि पेशेंट जाता था, सुबह गया, शाम को ब्लड लेके आ गया. अब उसको हर बार, क्योंकि डोनर अरेंज करना पड़ता है, पहले वो एक दिन डोनर लेके एक ब्लड बैंक जाता है, सारा दिन वहां खराब करता है. अगले दिन जो है फिर वो जहाँ ब्लड लेना है वहां जाता है, फिर 2 दिन या 3 दिन खराब हो जाते हैं. इसके अलावा है कि हमारे जो दिल्ली के अंदर जो कई पेशेंट ऐसे हैं जो बाहर से आते थे, जैसे अपना गाजियाबाद से, मुरादाबाद से, हांसी से और कहीं से 200-400 किलोमीटर से. अब जब लॉकडाउन हो गया तो उनका आना जाना बंद हो गया. वो 3 महीने के लिए वहां से ब्लड लेने नहीं आ सके और वहां पर ब्लड अवेलेबल नहीं था. तो इनका हीमोग्लोबिन जो 10-12 ग्राम रखते हैं वो कम होके 4, 5, 6 ग्राम आ गया. और एक बार अगर 4, 5, 6 ग्राम आ जाता है तो इनकी स्प्लीन बढ़ जाती है. वो स्प्लीन बढ़ने से रिक्वायरमेंट और बढ़ जाती है, यानी कि इन्फेक्शन का चांस बढ़ गया. ब्लड रिक्वायरमेंट परमानेंट कम से कम अगले 1-2 साल के लिए बढ़ गई. जो पहले ब्लड रिक्वायरमेंट थी अब उनको अगले 2-3 साल लगेंगे उस हीमोग्लोबिन को नॉर्मल लाने के लिए, क्योंकि आज भी ब्लड नहीं है. इसके अलावा जो इनको मेडिसिन मिलती थी, मेडिसिन मिलनी बंद हो गई, क्योंकि जब हॉस्पिटल में डे केयर सेंटर नहीं है तो मेडिसिन कहाँ से मिलेगी. फिर वो, क्योंकि पहले कोरियर फैसिलिटी नहीं थी, जो दवाई बाहर जाती थी वो भी नहीं मिलती, क्योंकि जो हमारी मेडिसिन है वो हर केमिस्ट के पास नहीं होती. इट इज आइदर अवेलेबल विद द गवर्नमेंट जहां वो फ्री मिल जाती है, और अवेलेबल विद द सोसाइटीज जहां हम सब्सिडीज कॉस्ट में देते हैं. तो हमें तो बहुत ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम हुई ब्लड की, ट्रांसफ्यूजन सेंटर की और मेडिसिन की. तो ये सब प्रॉब्लम के साथ हमारे बच्चों के साथ तो बहुत बुरा हाल आज भी है. ये नहीं कि आज अनलॉक 4 चल रहा है, आज भी उनका हीमोग्लोबिन जो है 6-7 से ज्यादा नहीं है, मेडिसिन भी पूरी नहीं मिल पा रही.
थैंक यू डॉक्टर अरोरा. ये सबकी समस्या है. हम लोगों को मल्टीपल स्क्लेरोसिस का those people who are taking the medication and the DMTs, they are on immunosuppressant and they are also very scared कि हम बाहर जाएं नहीं जाएं कैसे करें. और एक जो मैं I'll just circle back once again to मुकेश जी, where he said कि हम लोग बोल रहे हैं कि गवर्नमेंट अपॉइंटेड एक हेमाटोलॉजिस्ट हो या हम लोग कह रहे हैं कि न्यूरोलॉजिस्ट हो असेसमेंट पैनल में. एक अभी ऐसा समस्या है कि एक हमारे एमएस पेशेंट गए हैं किसी हॉस्पिटल में और उनको कहा गया है यस वी विल गिव यू पैनल बैठ रही है, आप मंगलवार को आ जाइए, लेकिन हमारे पास न्यूरोलॉजिस्ट नहीं है, तो आप दूसरे वाले हॉस्पिटल में जाइए which is declared as a COVID hospital. So now she is calling and saying, should I go? Should we go? What should we do? Now we don't even know how to deal with this. So these are really practical issues. But thank you. Actually, everybody has given their perspective. I think we have covered very, very important ground and we are out of time. These are the few questions. They had actually come in different the same thing was said in different ways, but I kind of just put it into two buckets because these are the burning things about COVID की समस्या and हमारे 40% benchmark. So just to sum up, जो सारे panelists से जो हमने सुना है, I'm going to speak in Hindi and English because I'm a Bengali, so my Hindi is not the best, though I live in Delhi and I've studied in Delhi. But जैसे 40% एक तो दिख रहा है कि invisible symptoms is definitely something which commonly everybody is saying. And yes, we will be looking at talking to our neurologists, the Scientific and Medical Advisory Committee, to write and publish something in the annals and the journals, which are really the authentic way to put across a point. More so because it is coming from the experts in the medical field who understand the disorder. The other thing we are seeing is that points like 40% benchmark, it is doubtful. How do we make the assessment guidelines more specific to the new disabilities? Should there now, I'm thinking, should there be different segments for different disabilities, or should there be a common thing which says for hemophilia, Parkinson's, and maybe thalassemia, these are invisible, this can be categorized. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And the work and the webinar doesn't end here. Our work doesn't end here. So what I have also gathered from all our speakers today is that हम सब एक दूसरे को सपोर्ट करेंगे. सिर्फ हेड्स ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस आज हमारे साथ हैं, लेकिन आप सब जो हेड्स ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, हॉस्पिटल्स में हैं, all of you, we must convert 10 new people to understand our problem. We need to get our voice to the government. We need to have a roundtable discussion with the government. I am thankful that you all have said that MSSI has taken this step and got you all, but we cannot do anything without collective approach and collective voice. I will continue to bank on everyone's support. All our chapters, our senior members are here. You will be happy to know that our founder of MSSI, Sheila Chitnis ji, is also on this webinar. She started this organization with only 3 people. And today we have close to 3,500 people and counting with multiple sclerosis. Awareness बड़ी है, लेकिन हमारी lifestyle, हमारे quality of life में इतनी कोई तब्दीली नहीं आई है. सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट के स्कीम्स एंड पॉलिसीज इंक्लूसिव हो तभी हमारे जिंदगी को थोड़ी सी सुकून मिलेगी, हमारे क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ इंप्रूव करेगा, हमारी बेनिफिट्स हमको मिलेंगे, इंश्योरेंस मिलेगा, आईटी एग्जेम्पशन मिलेगा, जॉब सिक्योरिटी मिलेगा. ये सब, all these are common aspects that we are seeing. I want to inform you and inform all our members who are hearing that we will reach out to you. Javed ji is also there. Javed ji has just sent a message telling me that we will reach out to each one of these panelists. We want to know आप लोग कौन-कौन से cities में आपकी offices हैं और हमारे कौन से multiple sclerosis की office आप लोगों के साथ मिलके इसको आगे बढ़ाएंगे, because state will also be responsible. Policy तो बन जाए या policy change हो जाए, because health is a state subject. It is also important for states to reach out to the ministries at their state level and their social welfare board. So we will definitely be reaching out. It is not the end. So this was what I have gathered. I would also take this opportunity to thank everyone, Dr. Satendra Singh, Dr. J.S. Arora, Mr. Mukesh Garodia, Nikita ji. Thank you very much for being a part of this. I know how difficult it is, but there is always opportunity in adversity, is what I believe. If COVID hadn't happened, we would not even be able to see each other like this, because we are so busy in our lives. We would not be able to see this fantastic participation from all of you. We are connected digitally. Let us connect with the government digitally. We will need to call for a meeting. We will need to have a virtual meeting with the government. And I think we need each other's support to make that reality happen. So on that very positive and hopeful note, I would like to say thank you very much to all of you. I would also like to thank each and every chapter person who has made it an effort to send out this webinar request. Thank you very much for doing this. It is very difficult. Some of our members are not digitally connected, but thank you very much. And if I have missed anyone, please forgive me, but I think we are all going away with a very, very interesting and hopeful future for us. And let us not let the momentum die. Thank you very much. We do have some time for all those who want to leave. Thank you very much. For all those who want to stay on and send some messages. For all the panelists, because they have taken time, please do send us your encouraging words. Please do send us what you want us to do. It will all be captured, and we will try and make all these dreams come to reality. Thank you.
We'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Deepa Palniappan, disability consultant, BRLPS, Bihar. Thank you, ma'am, for joining in.
Thank you.
Hello, Renuka. I would also like to thank all the panelists. It was an excellent webinar. And thank you to you also. You have done it very well. And I'm glad that we are going forward and forward and forward. And we are this campaign has got such a momentum. I'm so happy about it. Thank you very much. Thanks all of you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I would like to say that this is not just the end. This is just the beginning of a new start. With together, we can make a huge difference and make our voices heard, so that the government gives us the right space which we need. We don't want sympathy, we want empathy. That's what we want. Thank you so much.
Exactly.
Thank you, everybody. And I would request to send the direct emails in future. Thank you, MSSI.
Thank you.
Shruti ji, please get in touch with Javed. Can you please put in your email ID so that anybody who wishes to take part in our campaign?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm giving the chat box.
Shruti ji, you can get in touch with Javed ji. He'll be happy to connect with you and engage with you in the campaign. Deepa, you can unmute yourself. You wanted to share your thoughts.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for this. Actually, I also have Neeraj sir here, who's from the department himself directly. I'm just a consultant. Neeraj sir is also the disability person in charge for disability inclusion within Bihar State Rural Livelihood Mission. The point that I wanted to make, that really we are struggling alone in this regard, is something that you all might understand and appreciate, is the fact that we just rolled a disability inclusion policy, and within that we categorically refused to require for a need for disability certificate or even a minimum percentage or any kind of criteria to identify and include persons with disabilities. Initially, there was some resistance, and Neeraj sir actually like kind of pulled through bravely, and he himself is a father of a child with thalassemia, and he had been like an active supporter within the state. And the point for about this policy that I have attached in the chat here, I really think that this is a community, if not anybody else, this is a community that's going to really understand what we are trying to do here. And even if there is other mainstream department, people might not get the relevance. This particular community here is going to definitely understand the struggle or the kind of the map that we are trying to build. What some of the points being, we have moved away from medical kind of assessment, but included functional criteria. That's why I have attached the policy, and I have the English version with myself personally. If anybody needs the English, some components are in Hindi. If someone wants those components in English, I can share that particular PDF also. But really, we need support, like everybody here, like-minded people. I've added Neeraj sir's contact here, his phone number and mail ID. As much as possible, please support this particular endeavor of government department that's trying to do as much as a comprehensive attempt to do away with this kind of micromanaging people with regard to various kinds of kind of like a community-based trying to do away with medicalizing disabilities. And also this particular department deals with grassroots rural poor people, where number of people with disability certificate is also very less. So in a lot of ways we can share our experiences and learn from you all, and please encourage and support this journey. And that's why Neeraj sir is also in this meeting, and I've included his mail ID and contact number, include him in all the future discussions and things like that. It will be really encouraging and motivating for this particular journey. The policy was just launched on August 13, so for us this is new, and we are still struggling, developing tools and everything. So we'll need support for all kinds of disabilities, all kinds of hidden disabilities, developing community tools for identification, training and everything. So it's I hope this will be a collective journey for us. Thank you for allowing me this chance, sir.
Thank you. Deepa ji, I have just one clarification. Are you, if my understanding is correct, you're saying functional disability should be assessed, and you're not pushing for just 40%. You're saying, is that what I understood correctly, or I have to?
Yes, ma'am. That's why I had attached the policy to make it clear. I mean, we have worded it also as participatory identification of disabled. Community ke log bolenge or vyakti khud bolega, person himself or herself is self-identifying, and we are okay with that. And we
very good.
Allow them in self-help groups. So, and also monetary benefit is not just namesake. Everything about the department, whatever is being done for disabled people, will be for all the people that are self-identified and community identified. So we struggled a lot for this particular component to be included, because we really believed, and Neeraj sir kind of like rode through, like how he himself mentioned in the comment. And so I think this is a milestone moment, because I know for the community disability rights activists, this would be like kind of could be a milestone moment going forward, how other departments should look at disability and move away from kind of medicalizing everything. And
right.
So that's the reason why it's very difficult.
What Dr. Satyendra Singh was mentioning.
Yes, that's why. That's the reason I wanted to. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I understood now. We will reach out to you, and we will all go through this policy, and we'll come back.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.